Welcome to the Smart Business Revolution.
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 You want a revolution?
You say you want a revolution?
Revolution. The revolution.
It's going on right now.
Welcome to The Revolution, the Smart Business Revolution podcast, where we ask today's most successful entrepreneurs to share the tools and strategies they use to build relationships and connections to grow their revenue. Now, your host for The Revolution, John Corcoran.
All right, welcome everyone. John Corcoran here, the host of this show, and such a pleasure every week I get to talk to smart CEOs, founders, entrepreneurs of a range of companies, ranging from YPO, EO, Activation Blizzard, LendingTree, OpenTable, Act Software, and many more. I'm also the co-founder of Rise 25, where we help connect B2B business owners to their ideal prospects. And my guest here is Kenji. He's the founder and CEO of Acuity, where he's on a mission to disrupt the antiquated accounting industry, creating a firm that's first priority is its employees' well-being, which is such an interesting mission. We're going to ask all about that, why that is so front and center and how that helps from a business perspective. He's also an active angel investor, primarily focusing on putting capital into clients of his accounting firm. And we'll ask about that as well. He's also active in EO Atlanta. And a quick shout out to Brad Stevens, who introduced us, past guest. And he's been involved with leadership there and also on the global membership committee. And he also has a show on YouTube. It's called The Drink While You Think video show, after my own heart, where you have to have a beer in your hand to go on the show. I love it. God, when do I get invited onto that one? That sounds great. Maybe if I play my cards right in this interview, I can do it. All right. So for those of you who don't know, of course, this is brought to you by Rise 25, where we help B2B businesses to get clients, referrals, and strategic partnerships. If you've ever been curious about content and networking and relationship building and driving business forward, give us a call or shoot us an email at support@rise25media.com, and happy to chat your ear off about it. All right, Kenji, such a pleasure to have you here. And sir, we were chatting beforehand, and I think you're a little bit left-brained, a little bit right-brained, just like I am. You got the wonky side to you, and then you got the more outward extrovert side to you, it sounds like. But when you started Acuity about 17 years ago, I guess, 2004?
Correct. Yep.
2004. Did you feel like a little bit of an odd duck, since you're not the traditional green eye shade, glasses kind of accountant?
Well, John, first, thanks so much for having me on. I'm super pumped to be part of the revolution here. And so, but yeah, I did feel a little bit different. I think you and I share something, probably that left-right brain. I have described myself for many, many years as a recovering CPA. I think I've noticed you've talked about yourself being a recovering
lawyer. Yeah, for sure.
So,
because everyone hates lawyers, but if I say that, it kind of takes the sting out of it a little bit.
It does take it out, a little self-deprecating. And so I think we share that. I got into accounting in a weird way. I think I thought that was a great path into entrepreneurship. It ended up being a good path into entrepreneurship for me. But as a kid, the guy I looked up to, my dad's best friend, who was an entrepreneur, he had an accounting degree. And literally as like a 16, 17-year-old, I just thought, well, that's in my naive brain. Well, that's what I need to go do and study to become an entrepreneur. And I'm glad it worked out. But when I was certainly in the mix of it, certainly doing all my undergraduate studies, sitting for the CPA exam, working in a big, large global public accounting firm, it felt like the furthest thing in the world away from being an entrepreneur. And I think that's a little bit where that right and left brain started to kind of emerge. I've always been a very relational, outgoing person. And so being inside of an accounting organization, a rather large one, started feeling pretty constricting to that. So that led up to at least leaving. I was at this global public accounting firm. Then during the initial .com boom of 2000, late 90s, 2000, I jumped out to become the controller, then the CFO of a tech company.
And so you were at Arthur Andersen, right?
I was, yeah.
Which now I was, I can't remember exactly when Arthur Andersen kind of got cratered through the whole Enron crisis. I was a speechwriter for the governor of California at that time. So we were obviously actively involved in the energy crisis
Absolutely.
and Enron and Arthur Andersen was all involved. Did you leave around the time that it cratered or before?
I snuck out just beforehand. So that was probably, my guess is then that you must
see you later,
guys.
guys.
see ya. That you were probably doing that speech writing probably in the early 2000s, because that's when things went down.
Yeah.
With Enron, and I'd already kind of gotten out, was in a very different office, but it was crazy. It was crazy watching that kind of implode. That probably also had an interesting effect on me too, because at least when I was in that firm, it felt like, well, this is just the monolithic, super stable, safe place to work. And so going to something kind of entrepreneurial, smaller, felt kind of a little scary. And then as soon as I had been there for a couple of years at this startup, then to watch my previous employer, one of the largest accounting firms in the world, completely implode, kind of took a little bit of that going, well, okay, wait a minute. That's nowhere near as secure as maybe we all were led to believe. So what's the harm in trying to do something a little bit more entrepreneurial? So yeah, that was interesting time for sure.
Yeah. Interesting how it affects you like that. Yeah. It is weird. I had that where I've had employers that imploded after I left. Hopefully it wasn't my doing, but and it's a weird feeling to see that happen. And you feel sad for colleagues and stuff like that. But you mentioned this, your father's best friend. What else was it about him that you looked up to other than his accounting degree?
Well, in very similar ways too, probably being very right and left brain, probably the most outgoing, gregarious person I knew. Like I always remember, I used to work for him and kind of intern for him in the summers. And he would always answer his phone, no matter who was calling him. And he just said this big hello. And it was this very I just always remember little things like that about him, but he was just, and he still is to this day. I still am close with him. Extremely warm and welcoming. He just seemed like a very, very genuinely happy guy. And also I'm looking at it from the outside as a young person going, gosh, incredibly successful in the businesses he was building and creating. So I saw the two of those things and thought, well, those are certainly possible, right? Having financial success and business success and knowing their family well, being a very just happy kind of guy as well there too. So I think that impacted me significantly. My dad was a doctor. In fact, I broke a long lineage of healthcare professionals. My grandfather was too. And I saw them both work like crazy. And it was a great profession.
I'm going to be an entrepreneur, so I don't have to work hard.
Exactly. And that in that naive way that you think as a kid, and you realize that's just a different, that was a profession my dad chose, and he was helping save lives and did a lot of work on things like people in car accidents and pretty traumatic events. So you had to be kind of ready and on call for things. And so also too, things like the sight of blood freaked me out, still do. So I was probably not cut out for that line of work. But yeah, I think it kind of, I was looking for a different path there. And I was getting it was very helpful that I had family who were like, hey, that's fine, pursue that. You don't have to kind of live on some line of having another medical professional in the household. Yeah. So I was looking out there for people, mentors, people ahead of me that I could, I've never been a very abstract thinker. I've always thought of myself as being pretty concrete. So for me, I like to look for examples of other people and then try to follow those paths. So that's how I ended up in accounting. And then my concern was, once I was there, was, oh my gosh, I'm never going to get out of this world. It's just very compliant oriented, and it's going to be, it's going to crush any kind of creative spirit or outgoing nature I have. And thankfully in 2004, we saw an opportunity to start Acuity and found a way to start kind of blending some of those things together by bringing in the entrepreneurial side along with the very technical accounting background, which again, maybe, I don't know if that's similar to, your story, John, with, how yours emerged. But yeah, it's been good now to have both sides of those brains. I think I can kind of lean on them a little bit more effectively now as I'm a little bit further in my career.
And so I imagine your family members and your friends looking at you, and it's like Arthur Andersen to startup down to his own company, kind of going backwards, right? Which is actually kind of parallels my path from I started at the White House and I've been working my way down throughout my entire career. But what was it like in the early days?
Probably like many stories in the early days, where it was tough. It was exciting, very, very exciting. And what I promised my wife was, and she was pregnant out to here, and she's a teeny little thing anyway. She was pregnant out to here with our second child. And I said, hey, I want to go do this. Thankfully, she comes from an entrepreneurial family, even though I don't. So she was much more accepting of this. And I told her, hey, listen, if this doesn't work out, I'll go back and just go back into a CFO job somewhere and have an interesting story to tell while I'm going through hiring and recruiting processes. So we gave it, 6 months, 12 months, and then it kind of started rolling a bit. But it was definitely challenging, especially that she had stopped working and were taking care of the kids at home. And I think there were a lot of my former colleagues who were kind of going, what in the world is he doing? Right. And there was a bit of ego there. I mean, there was certainly working for a global big organization like we were at Arthur Andersen. I'm watching other people go into public companies and do this very much high-powered corporate work. And here I am, working out of a broom closet, trying to stand up a website for the first time back in 2004 and business cards and things like that. And it was concerning. I was a little worried about, like, am I damaging? I've done all these things to build up credibility. Am I now going out and am I going to damage those? That said, I certainly felt so much more at peace, right? There was some financial stress, things like that, but I felt much more like this is the place I need to be in, because now I'm out kind of working with people. And the whole reason I started Acuity was because I had this background in kind of startups, I just started meeting other startup founders, and they would say, oh, you're the CFO of a startup. Hey, I've got some questions about capital raising, or I've got need help on a pro forma model. Can I buy you lunch or buy you beer or something like that, and just talk to you about it? And I was doing that. It was so much fun. I was having a ton of fun doing that. And that's really where it came from, of going, well, maybe I can just fractionalize my time a bit and pick up a few different clients. And these are fun conversations to be having. I'm meeting more and more people. And that was very interesting to me, because that's the one thing I did miss about public accounting was it did give you the opportunity to be in client service. And so you got to see lots of different environments and experiences and people. The work I hated when I was in public accounting. I just despised doing audit. But that was a nice component of it, where you worked with a lot of smart people and you also got to serve a lot of different clients. So the work was never monotonous. You weren't in the same environment all the time. So I was looking to kind of resurrect and bring some of that back into my life. I just didn't want to do the same work product that we had been delivering as auditors in public accounting. I'm like, that's got to change. That's just something I just can't stomach doing.
And, accounting, like law, is a very antiquated industry, and you knew you wanted to do something different. And I mentioned in the introduction at the beginning that you wanted to create a firm that its first priority was its employees' well-being. So talk a little bit about the choice to put that front and center, how that's had an influence on the business. Do clients care about that sort of thing? Does it attract clients who care about that sort of thing? And any other things that you did in order to differentiate yourself in this kind of antiquated industry that you were in?
Initially, we didn't go that direction, John. It was just, can we get clients and can we serve them? And what we started finding was that as we began hiring, the people that enjoyed the work the most were people who had gone and worked in public accounting in corporate America and maybe taken some time off to raise their family and kind of didn't want to work the same 60, 80 hour a week grind, which accounting is notorious for. I think it's probably very similar when you think about law firm hours. Everything's utilization, bill rate. You're just kind of in the hours machine, kind of getting ground up. And so we started finding people who were working with us going, yeah, I'm part-time. I really enjoy this. And they were working out well for us. I was a little embarrassed in the early years because I kept thinking, gosh, if clients know that basically most of our staff are a bunch of part-time parents, right? I don't know if that's going to bode well. Well, that was a completely ridiculous notion, because in talking to some clients, and one of them mentioned that, they said, oh, are you kidding me? We love your team. Your team is fantastic. And so it kind of started dawning on us of, well, wait a minute. We're getting these really high quality people, but what we're doing is we're not going to be able to compete with the Deloitte and the Ernst & Young on these comp plans and the crazy intricate work, but from the way that we treat the team, allowing them to pick how many hours they want to work a week, where they want to work from. We've been a remote company for a long, long time, and it was a different notion in our space. Not many people were doing that, and we were starting to get all these people going, wait a minute, the quality of life and the integration you guys have in the balance there is something we haven't really seen in the accounting profession. So that was one of the reasons why I left public accounting, because I had some bad experiences with how out of balance it was. And so we really started leaning into that. And we saw, wow, this is something that our team, if we focus on the wellness of the team, because as much as we are a very tech forward accounting firm, the people are still the product. They're going to be that way in accounting and law for some time. And so it's a demonstrable difference for us as a business to have great people and for us to compete on wellness and how do we have a balanced lifestyle. How do we, this has been important. So we've been very mindful about, every single team member gets to pick, has always been able to pick where they work from, how much time they work. Our compensation plans are built around allowing people that space to do that. Lots of benefits for families. We are doing some things right now to pursue becoming a certified B Corporation, which is a benefit corp. So we're doing some things that we're really hearing our team say that is important to them, a place that they're proud to work at, that it gives them great balance and control in their life. And that we're out doing some good things out there for clients and for others in the community, which is just a very different notion that I don't want to paint entirely the accounting field historically. It's just a bunch of bad corporate kind of things there, but I have many friends who still work at it and it's great, but it can really grind you up a bit. And we found that's a great way to distinguish ourselves, and we're not going to compete against that. We're going to go and be a bit different by focusing on, creating a great environment for the team.
And I want to ask you about, you mentioned you embrace technology, you embrace cloud computing, that sort of thing. You have a video up on YouTube that I saw that was explaining, for a startup, the things that they should do. And one of the things you recommended was like getting started in QuickBooks Online, automating a bunch of different pieces. I had a bad experience with a bookkeeper a while back who was very controlling on their QuickBooks desktop version that they liked having on their computer. I saw it once a year. I wasn't looking at my books at all. And I kept asking him about, should I do QuickBooks Online? What's that like? How's that work? He would shit on it, be like, no, you don't want that. That's horrible. And then after Jeremy and I became business partners, we switched that. I was like, this is revelatory. I have so much more access. And we switched to a different bookkeeping firm. But what I ask you about is there's a fine line, right? As technology comes along, that's going to displace workers in the accounting profession, the legal profession. I think it's influencing as well. So how do you toe the line there?
What we found the key is to remind our team that we're knowledge workers. We're always going to be knowledge workers, and we should be thankful and grateful that we're in this state of the world, and the jobs that we have are knowledge based, and we're not out having to do some of the hard work that I'd be horrible at, swinging a hammer or doing the things that many people can do that I can't, and that we need to keep moving our skill set, holding in the knowledge space, because what we're seeing is technology is becoming really, really good at taking some of the menial tasks off. There's probably many of them that, you were having to do in your law firm that we did in accounting, very menial tasks that we've got very competent staff people who've trained to become CPAs, who've worked hard in their career going, there's a lot of menial tasks in there. We're happy to automate those. And those are somewhat disruptive to lower level staff or people doing that. Our job as the employer is to make sure they get the professional development, they're moving themselves up, and they're really seeing themselves as, hey, I'm a knowledge worker. I'm not a menial worker who's just clicking a button or reconciling an account. And your experience that you had, with your accountant on QuickBooks Desktop, and them shitting all over it, that's very common. That was really common back then too, because some of that comes from a fear, I think, that all of us have, particularly, I would say it's pronounced in our profession, is a fear of change and that my job's being taken away. I think accountants are probably some of the worst for being risk averse. So change is really viewed very skeptically and is very much a threat. And we've definitely changed it, at least at Acuity, trying to be like, hey, that is such great opportunity. So we've really leaned into those tool sets. And it creates some disruption. I think our team gets, we're having to juggle so many different pieces of software these days.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a ton.
Of them.
I mean, and some companies make a decision that we're just going to stick to these. We're only going to use these, but you haven't done that?
We haven't done that. We change them out fairly frequently based on what we find that customers need. Because the thing we kept hearing over and over again is most small business, first of all, small businesses, the number one thing they despise most about being a small business owner is having to deal with back office tasks like bookkeeping and things, right? Nobody gets into their business for that. So they can't stand that. The other piece is if they're outsourcing it, the experience you had, and they look at their business, the component that is the most antiquated or in the dark ages of their business is always the accounting, right? And so what we said is we want actually we work with a ton of startups and venture-backed companies. And so we have actually a really good benefit that we have clients who are super open to all kinds of new technology solutions. So we're trying to make sure that the accounting function matches the same aptitude and technical ability that the marketing function, the sales function is. We don't want the accounting function being the one that's still sitting there on some server or some guy's desktop in the back office somewhere. So when we put ourselves in the perspective of the client standpoint and really listen and engage and talk to them, we were hearing such, strong, like, yes, please give me the data there, because nobody wants to get any more like your experience, John, of, my books I get once a month and I'm stuck on this because that's what my CPA likes because it integrates with their tax software better. That's a terrible answer. It's a really poor answer for a business owner. So we've loved that. We've loved, it helped that myself, my co-founder and I have always worked in tech. So we've had a very strong bias toward using it. But many people do look at it as a threat to the profession and the lower level people in the profession.
Now, for those listening to this who don't know kind of the different hierarchy, there's a CFO, there's a controller, there's a bookkeeper, there's kind of different levels here. And you started with CFO, kind of started at the top, the highest level, most valuable service, and then you've added others below there. So when do companies know what they should be using, and when should they be layering and adding more of those, and how do you add those as you go along?
The bookkeeping is pretty easy. I mean, pretty much everybody needs something to be able to keep historical transactions in order. I always tell business owners, as soon as you're tired of doing it, think about a couple, between us and other providers out there in the space, you can get someone for a couple $100 a month to manage your books, the basic bookkeeping. So when you're first starting and you're pinching pennies and maybe you're interested in looking at all your transactions, sure, the business owner can go and use something like QuickBooks Online or Xero, one of the cloud-based tools. It's pretty easy, and just do it themselves. When it becomes more than, I'd call it, a $300 a month headache, and you're like, forget it, I don't want to deal with it. There's plenty of options out there to get someone to do that. Now, the higher level functions, I'll just jump to the CFO side. What we tell people there is 100% of a CFO's work should all be forward-looking. So most accounting is done retroactively. Customer pays you, you send them a bill, and you got to record that some way. The thing's already happened, we just got to record it. CFO work should be all forward-looking. So one of the ways I just try to very simply advise small businesses, think about how many things you really have that are prospective or forward-looking. Maybe when you just get started, you need a little bit of help on a budget, right? You need a little bit of some planning. So you might need a little bit of CFO work. But then when we see our clients do things like doing capital raises, which many of them do, sophisticated forecasting, those are activities, anything that is out the front window, out of forward looking, should be when you start thinking of, I should probably look for a CFO. And now the good thing is the market has really matured to where there's a lot of outsourced CFOs you can get. When we started 17 years ago, it was a huge nuisance for us explaining to people that, hey, we weren't a CPA firm doing taxes. We were actually outsourced CFOs that you could actually get someone on a fractional basis, but that's much more common. So yeah, I think the delineation of when it becomes something you're trying to predict in the future and it's got a financial component, that's usually a good sign. If you got a lot of that or recurs quite a bit, that's a good sign to say, hey, it's probably start time to thinking about engaging a CFO in some shape or form for a few hours a week or a month.
Right. And of course, you have to have the metrics there. Also, one thing I discovered recently, not too recent, a little while back in our business, was that various different software tools that we were using were not properly set up in order to track and be able to have those forward-looking metrics for a CFO to be able to look at what you're doing and make give advice on it.
Yeah. We had, when we launched our bookkeeping, again, something I said I would never do. And again, this was probably ego, short-sightedness on my part. coming out of, CPA, coming out of the, Arthur Anderson, kept thinking bookkeeping. No, we're not ever going to do something like bookkeeping. But what we were finding was we couldn't get to a lot of the good CFO work clients wanted us to do because the underlying books were in such bad shape. They were terrible. They were in terrible shape. And so we kept running into that, and it was frustrating. And then finally I had a client of ours who became a really good friend, who just said, hey, and had a great tech company he was running. And we just kind of sat down one day and really just did a lot of talking about like, okay, what if I could use it kind of a very technology oriented? I said, what if we got the bookkeeping to look like this and this? And we sat down and kind of sketched it all out together, but did it really with one of our existing clients. Cause he was like, listen, I'll be your first client to sign up for it. If you could just do it, because I hate it. And I don't want to hire another bookkeeper off Craigslist. I really don't want to do that. So it was some of our early customers who really kind of gave us that, like, that charge to kind of move forward. And it's just spent time talking to them and got it going. And actually today our bookkeeping practice is much larger than our CFO practices. So,
wow, that's interesting. That's interesting.
It's crazy.
Always funny when you resist something and then it ends up being,
isn't it?
So successful.
It is.
That's funny.
Yeah, it's wild.
Well, we're running short on time, so I'll wrap things up with the 3 questions that I enjoy asking. So first, a reflection on what we're doing right now, which is we're creating content and we're sharing wisdom with the world, pushing it forward and delivering value to others and building relationships with each other and the audience. And you do that as well through your YouTube channel. So share some wisdom of what you've learned through the YouTube show that you've been doing, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah. So wisdom while we're sitting here drinking. Oh my gosh. And again, the premise of this, we call it drink while you think. And the backstory is my business partner and I, we've done blogging before. We need to always focus on content for the website and inbound. And we thought, well, what's something else that we need to focus on? We thought video. And however, we weren't sure what to really put out on video. So we thought, what's going to be easy to do on a regular basis that we're not going to just come up with, okay, let's do video and we're going to get tired of it in a month and stop doing it. We've done that numerous times with newsletters over the year and things like that we just get so tired of it. And so we thought, well, if we both like talking about entrepreneurial things that are kind of relevant in our space. We love having a beer with our friends. What if we literally just videoed us having a conversation with having some beers with our friends, talking about interesting things in the space, interesting to us at least. And so we did that as a way for us to get more comfortable in front of the camera, in front of the microphone in a very non-threatening manner, and one that also that we could kind of look forward to. I mean, honestly, we film it every Friday afternoon, late afternoon. So we kind of always it's like a little bit of our happy hour decompress at the end of the week. And we honestly look forward to it. And so it's made it very easily and repeatable. And what it did is kind of built up some confidence in us to just get on and talk. And what we found is we were probably overthinking content for a long time. I mean, we got to write the exact right thing to get someone in there. And what we found is that by just having a conversation, we've had more people, whether it's new employees who said, hey, I joined up with you guys because I happened to watch some of those videos. I just really liked the vibe. We've had people have signed up to us as clients who said, hey, it was important to me. It was meaningful that I know you guys do the work, but I can imagine myself sitting down having a beer with the two of you. That's meaningful for me and someone I'm going to work with. So it's done a few things there. I just talked to another firm owner this morning who said, hey, I wanted to ask you a question about something you talked to about a couple months ago while you were out having beer. This is around the Thanksgiving time. And, so it's been
thinking
amazing.
About it since then. That's cool. Yeah.
And we just had a time on the calendar to talk this morning. And so I would really encourage people to get creative and don't be so concerned about, is it going to look or sound professional? Just get in the habit of doing it. And I think that you'll be very pleasantly surprised by how many meaningful points of contact may come out of just having the courage to start something and kind of repeat it. So it's been fun. It's been a lot of fun for us. We have actually even a sponsor, someone who's a sponsor now. And we've joked that sponsorship for our video series only requires people sending us beer. And a company out of Minnesota sent us a whole bunch of beer, and they've been our sponsor lately because we got a whole bunch of beer. So
nice. That's awesome. That's awesome. I think it's wonderful that you do that, but you got to do it Monday morning. Just start off the week right. Friday afternoon. That's kind of a cop out. Like
I can't even imagine what it would be like.
Everyone can do a show like that on Friday afternoon, but Monday morning that would be different. All right. Last two questions. So I'm a big fan of gratitude. So if you look around at your peers or your contemporaries, however you define that, it could be other EOers, it could be other business owners, clients, however you want to define it. Who do you respect? Who do you admire?
I'll throw out Brad Stevens. You mentioned Brad here earlier. He is a dear, dear friend of mine. He's an EO member. He was our president here in Atlanta this past year and did an amazing job. Brad is someone who I'm just incredibly grateful for his friendship, and especially how much we've outsourced access, and we've worked together and we've helped each other in so many ways on our businesses. So Brad's been incredible. My business partner, Matthew May, if he were here, I wouldn't want to say it because we love to give each other a hard time, but he has the benefits of having a great partner will never be lost on me. And he is the best partner I could have. We are great, dear, dear friends, and we love doing business together. The business would never be in the shape it is today without him joining. He joined about 7-8 years ago. And he's just been phenomenal. So I'm so grateful to Matthew, to Brad, and also to my wife. I know it's not family, but she is an amazing entrepreneur herself. She was in the accelerator program in Atlanta until she sold her company, got acquired. So she didn't go into EO. She didn't get there because her company got acquired. And she's still probably the most inspiring entrepreneur to me. And it's great because she gets to sit, I could wave to her in the other room there, working from home here, and to have a great entrepreneur like her right here in the same household is fantastic. So I'm very, very grateful for her too.
That's great. All right. And then final question, let's pretend we're at an awards banquet, much like the Oscars or the Emmys. You are being awarded a Lifetime Achievement Award for everything you've done up until this point. And who do you think, in addition to family and friends, who are the colleagues, who are the mentors, who are the peers, who are the business partners, who are the investors, who are the people that you would acknowledge in your remarks?
Again, I go back to Matthew on that. I'd have to thank him. My EO forum, and this, not to make this an advertisement for EO, but I've been in the same forum for 7 years, and that group has been my advisory board, my group of accountability. So my entire forum, there've been a few who've come and gone, would be there as well. Those would be the ones who I think for me are certainly the most meaningful, who've been with me through life, who've seen kind of the ups and downs, certainly outside of my family members. And then I'd say one other who is a guy by the name of Steve Braskamp, who has been I'm the oldest in my family, but he is my big brother. I followed him off to college. I followed him kind of around. He's a very, very high level executive now at Capital One, but I still talk to him. He's my best man at my wedding. I talk to him every week, and I get so much advice from him. So there's many places I would not be here in life without Steve, Matthew, and my EO forum. So.
All right, Kenji, Acuity.co is the website. Where else can people go to learn more about you, connect with you, ask you a question if they have one?
Sure. Come check us out. Just type in Drink While You Think on YouTube. If you want to get a sense of what me and Matthew talk about, post a comment. You can also find me on Twitter at just Kenji Kuramoto. You can find me there, and also on LinkedIn under Kenji Kuramoto. Would love to connect with you. If you have any questions around the accounting, financial space, or angel investing, or things we're doing, please reach out and connect.
Awesome, Kenji. All right. Thanks so much.
Thanks, John.
Thank you for listening to the Smart Business Revolution podcast with John Corcoran. Find out more at smartbusinessrevolution.com. And while you're there, sign up for our email list and join the revolution.
Revolution.
And be listening for the next episode of the Smart Business Revolution podcast.